Hey, everybody, welcome to this week. And what a week it has been. Well, mostly. It's been, to be honest, it's been a very boring week news wise. Not a lot in the news. I still, of course, have found our tidbits that we will definitely talk about here today as we get ourselves moving forward. So, before we do that, I'll just very quickly say hi. I got to say hi to Jordan. He's been in here nice and early saying, "Good evening, Mountain Finance. Hello, all of chat family. I'm fitting to just chill here till you kick it off." Well, Jordan, it is officially kicked off. And hello, Jill. Nice to see you. Nice to see everybody here. Keep in mind, even though we're going to be going through some news and things like that, in these shows are about you guys. So you guys can throw your questions, your comments. You can take us all off on tangents. I'm okay with all of that. And hello, Bleak. It's always good to see you. It's a little bit less bleak when Bleak's in the house, if that makes sense. And hello once again, Jordan. All right, so we'll kick this topic off today a little bit about oil. So even though we know that the prices of gas is coming down a little bit, so we're getting a little bit of late summer relief at the pumps, which is certainly nice for people who have to drive everywhere. The oil companies are now starting to report their Q2s. And let me tell you, we're talking record profit oil season for sure. And Q2 was absolutely fantastic. Just to give you a little bit of an idea, Synovus, and some of you may be invested in Synovus, their Q2 this year was almost 2 times what it was last year. So they pretty much doubled their profit, between 2022 and 2021. That's fantastic. If you think that sounds fantastic, Imperial Oil, they 6x their profit. 6x. Holy banana bread. Exxon, Shell, Chevron, other big companies, most of those are in the States, but they've all been reporting really, really big record oil profits. One of the stocks that I hold, Torlamine, they announced, because of their record profits, they're doing a special dividend. It's a cash amount that's coming out in August. So that's absolutely fantastic. And we're starting to see that right now. Some of the oil companies are starting to give back. So people who have held onto their oil, even when oil started to slump a little, this is not a bad thing. Now, here's an interesting tidbit, though, just to let you know. So OPEC has come out and they have said that they're looking to increase their production by 100,000 barrels a day in September. So you might be thinking, 100,000, wow, that's great. Well, it's actually not. Normally, they increase their production by a lot more than 100,000 in September. So what we've got happening here is, well, OPEC is looking to keep the production of oil on the low side to keep the profits on the high side. So those of you who currently hold oil stocks, you're probably going to be looking at a resurgence in that oil price in the fall, because as things become more scarce and as the need for oil, especially once we start heading towards winter, as the need starts going up with the shortage, with a huge energy crisis in Europe, these are going to be good stocks to be holding on to. And I will tell you, I am, and you guys will find out this tomorrow in tomorrow's video, I may be a wee bit over diversified into oil. So this will be kind of interesting. I'll talk a little bit more about tomorrow's video later, as we have a lot more to do, a lot more to talk about in the current. So from oil, I was thinking, what's a great topic to follow up oil? Well, it's Tim Hortons. So Tim Hortons has been in the news for 2 reasons this week. One reason that they're in the news is, well, their earnings have come out. They had a 14% growth in Q2, which is fantastic. Tim Hortons is doing amazing, and so amazing that they have reported that they have finally got their sale of coffee and baked goods back to pre-pandemic levels. So it is now business as usual at Tim Hortons, as they have, they have navigated the pandemic and they seem to be doing well. And even if you think about it, even with recession fears, with inflation, um, if anything, it just means that a lot of people who perhaps used to like Starbucks are probably going for the cheaper choice, which is now Tim's. So that's probably helping them a little bit if you think about it. Curious though, for those of you who are here right now, what is your choice? Do you prefer Tim Hortons or do you prefer Starbucks? Or do you prefer one of those other ones? Like I think there's oh my God, I can't even think of what the other places' names are because it's usually just Tim Hortons versus Starbucks in my mind. But yeah, what's your favorite coffee place? If you have to have coffee out, what is your favorite place? So let me know while I'm waiting to hear from you guys. Tiny bit on grain. And so Jordan has mentioned Tim's. Yeah, absolutely. Here's a really interesting thing. Jill got me some coffee from McDonald's last week. And I used to always hate McDonald's coffee. But many years ago now, McDonald's was able to scoop out the Tim Hortons formula because for whatever reason, it became available. Tim Hortons hadn't jumped on it right away. So Tim Hortons had to change their formula. So now the McDonald's current coffee is the old Tim's coffee, and the Tim's coffee now is a slightly different version than the old Tim's coffee. So McDonald's coffee actually tastes good now. So that's, if you want a Tim Hortons coffee, just go to McDonald's. It's pretty darn good. So that is kind of an interesting little thing there. Grain. I was about to mention grain. So there had been a negotiated deal. I think Turkey and part of the UN as well had been talking with Russia about allowing Ukraine to ship out a little bit of grain. So it was basically agreed that they could ship out from Odessa. And of course, shortly after that, Russia then did, fire a few missiles in that direction into the port. But since then, they seem to be, so maybe it was a misfire. I don't know, but they have, Ukraine has successfully begun to ship some grain out. So that is good news for the world. And look, this is it. This is right now, I love this. Why not make coffee at home and invest the savings? Joe, you speak like a true financial minimalist. And I'll tell you, that is fantastic. That's what I prefer. That is my absolute choice. I love, and here's this thing. A lot of people will think I'm crazy because I love instant coffee. And I love, the cheap Maxwell House instant coffee is, for me, perfect. So I love it. I can live off of it. And it gives me my coffee fix. And it's pretty darn cheap. You can go to Walmart and you can buy a bottle of it for like $5. I think as well, you can get it. You can also get it now on Amazon for $5 as well. So that's not too bad. Every so often, Shoppers Drug Mart will have it on sale for like $2.97. So whenever I run into that, I'll go in and I'll buy like 10 of them. Because you're saving a whole crap load of money. But yeah, Joe has it right, nailed it right on the head. That's the best way to go. Now I do like Tim's coffee. And 99% of the time when I get Tim's coffee, it's because somebody gave me a gift card. And so it's free coffee. Free coffee is one step above making it at home for 25 cents, right? Or with inflation, 35 cents. So yeah, great comment, Joe. Yes, that was great. Let's move into the metaverse. The metaverse is something we don't hear a lot about anymore. Now, here's an interesting thing. So Tinder is owned by a company called Match. And Tinder had plans of moving into the metaverse, and they were pretty ambitious plans. They were thinking of having their own little version of the metaverse called the Tinderverse. So I don't even want to know what happens in the Tinderverse, but that is now been put on hold because Match has said nope. After their Q2 results, they were down significantly. I believe it was 20% that the overall company, so Match, was down in Q2. And so Tinder is now going to stay away from the metaverse for the time being. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Now, if you think that it's an isolated thing with the metaverse, there have been Revelo Labs actually did a study, and they found that since April, the job postings in the metaverse are down by 80%. So the metaverse is hurting. And of course, Facebook or Meta, they're still all in. So we'll have to see how that turns out for them. I don't know if that's going to be a great thing for them. And Jordan says, for us, it's a treat once or twice a week. Other than that, we do prefer home drip or French press. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll tell you, you make your coffee at home, throw it in yourself in a thermos. You can take enough coffee with you to do you the whole day. So you can save a lot of money. And that money, as Joe said, can be used to invest. And that's kind of the whole idea behind nickel and diming, right? Is to find places where you can trim some money and move it into your investments, because that's always a really, really good thing. A little bit of bank news. So Toronto Dominion Bank, they went shopping this week, and they purchased Cowen, which is an American financial institution. They basically spent $1.3 billion. So they spent a little bit on it. Part of this is that a lot of the Canadian banks, they have really strong presence in the US. Like Bank of Nova Scotia. Well, Bank of Nova Scotia has a very, very strong presence in Latin America, which is kind of interesting. But they're all looking, a lot of these banks, they're looking to diversify themselves more and get themselves into other markets. And this is a good, solid move for TD. So I would like to say, normally I would say, okay, maybe this is one you should look at whether you want to get involved in TD or not. But quite honestly, the big Canadian 6 banks, they're all blue chip. They're all good investments. But this is just another piece of positive for the U.S. Well, positive for Canada. It's also positive for the U.S. because I believe TD does have a presence on the New York Stock Exchange, and so this will be a opportunity for our American friends as well. So that's kind of cool. Chips, and of course, we're talking once again about computer chips. So Semitech, they're a big chip maker in the U.S. They purchased a Vancouver company called Sierra Wireless this week. Now, if you managed to be watching the stock market when this happened, and if you got in nice and early when this happened, you could have made some money, because Sierra Wireless, they went up 26% in their stock price over this. It actually was interesting. It wasn't a straight 26% up. They went about half, about 13%. Then they leveled out for part of the day, and then they went up another 13%. So this is one of those rare situations where if you gotten in a little late, you would have still been fine. But usually with these, I like to get in these when I hear about it before the actual movement starts to happen. So if I hear something's happening, like generally, if it's before the market's open, normally you'll start to hear hints that this is about to happen. And then at 9:30, Eastern, I'm in there. I'm putting my money on that stock because I know it's about to ride. But keep in mind, I do this, but it is risky. You want to really know what you're doing. So you don't want to sort of just go in haphazard, because a lot of times, if you don't get in right and out right, you're not going to make money. It's very easy to lose money doing it. Sort of one of the key to swing trading, one is not be greedy. And that's what I do. When I get involved in a swing trade, I will ride it. a little way. I usually have an idea of how much I'm looking to make. And maybe when I jump off, maybe I could have made twice as much. But you know what? I would rather take half the profit than take no profit. So that's one of those things. And we've got Dimitri in the house from Mountain of Inspiration. Always good time to see you, my friend. So Mountain of Inspiration, he has a really good channel. He pretty much has videos out every single day, and they're all inspirational. Um, he finds some very, very good stories to relate his point. So definitely, he's got a channel that's worth checking out. I love this guy. He is awesome. And he did say hello to everybody in the chat. So hello, everybody in chat for Dimitri of Mountain of Inspiration. Very cool. So yeah, that was the whole thing with Semtech, which is kind of interesting. And that's going to take us over to Amazon. So Amazon was in the news for a couple of reasons. One, and this almost makes me think about Twitter for a moment, but Amazon has a problem. One of the big problems on Amazon right now is the review system. So if you put a product on Amazon, a lot of people, what they do is after they put their product on, they'll then either hire some people or they'll go to different communities to get a whole bunch of fake 5-star reactions. So all these 5-star reactions will come in and, well, it's not reactions, but reviews. So then they may have a shoddy product, but you as a consumer, you come along and you do what I do. I always look at the reviews. And when you see all these 5-star reviews, you're thinking, oh yeah, this has to be the product for me. And you buy it and you get it and it's a piece of crap. And that happens. But what Amazon is looking to do is they're actually looking, they want to fight it. And that makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure how they plan to do it. I did read something about how they are looking to infiltrate into some of these groups on Facebook that sort of institute this type of thing. So we'll have to see how that works. But you guys as consumers, when you're buying something on Amazon and you go to look at the reviews, there's a few things that you can see that will actually kind of almost let you know whether it's a fake review or not. One of the big things is that if there's only 5-star reviews and there's no bad reviews or there's no 1-star reviews, they're probably fake. So I'm happy if I've got a lot of 5-star reviews, but I got a couple crappy reviews too. That tends to make me feel a little bit better. Also, look at the dates of when the 5-star reviews. If you go in and there's like 25-star reviews and they're all on the same day, chances are they did, they went to one of these Facebook groups or something, and everybody all coordinated a post attack to make sure to give all those star reviews. So that's kind of interesting. Let's see what Jordan had to say. Oh, Candace, in great news this week for Bonnie and I, after our AC broke down last year, June, then window units being banned in most buildings, we managed to save up for 2 new ACs. Saved $217.60. Absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. 271 was a clearance savings. Sorry, that's okay. So I'm glad to see that you've got some air conditioner. Any of you who are in Ontario, we've had the last couple of days have been very, very warm. So definitely don't want to be around. You don't want to be around a house without AC because that would be pretty bad. I know I lived in Florida for a summer once, and the girl I was staying with, our AC broke one day, and the person couldn't come in till the next day to fix it. And so she was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go stay with some friends." I'm like, "What? Why? Why don't we just stay here?" And she's like, "You don't do that in Florida." So we ended up going and staying with some other people just because. And when we came back the next morning, it was unbearable. It was almost like walking into an oven inside of the house. So that's the thing. Here's a pro tip. If you want to go spend some time in Florida, do it in the winter. I did it in the summer, so I pretty much picked the worst time possible. But that's okay. It was I experienced a lot of different stuff, which is fantastic. Okay. Back to Amazon. So Amazon has also made a purchase. So they're looking to buy iRobot. So that's that little the thing there from Roomba. So that little robot vacuum cleaner. Now here's the thing. A few people are concerned because Amazon already knows a lot about your house. You've got Alexa who's pretty much listening all the time, which is kind of funny. I was just realizing there's Alexa in this room, and I said her name, so I'm like, hopefully she doesn't just chirp in on something. Um, I know a couple of times on streams I've mentioned her, and I've I've set her off on other people's houses, so I'm gonna try just not mention her name anymore. But anyway, the concern is that what the robot does is as it learns your house. It pretty much gets a complete picture of your house's layout. And people are concerned that Amazon, it's like Amazon already knows pretty much everything. Now they've got a map of your house too. Is that too much information for Amazon to have? Personally, I'm not super concerned about it, but some people might be. What about you guys? You guys think that's too much for Amazon to know? Would you guys be concerned if Amazon knew your floor plan? Now, keep in mind too, you have to be a person who has one of these robot vacuums to be in that situation anyway. So that's Amazon for us. Holy banana bread! I found that a little bit funny that people were concerned about that. All right, so now Air Canada had their earnings come out this week, and they weren't soaring. In fact, Air Canada, they were down. Their revenue was down $318 million, so that's quite a bit. And they're mostly blaming that on some of the labor issues that they're having and not being able to process and move people through the airports, and have, as a result, of course, having to cancel all kinds of flights, and all of that rigmarole that Air Canada has been going through. So that's kind of interesting. Now, when I say they were down 318, they were down, sorry, ew. When they were down 386, that's definitely a lot. Amazingly, the thing about that is that their stock price didn't really go any lower. Like they've been sort of flatlined for a while. So they just continued to flatline as normal. That's not a bad thing. I really need to do some analysis on Air Canada again and see when or if there's any hope for that to become a good investment. Because, I think about 2 years ago, if somebody told me Air Canada would, be cratered this much, I'd be like, oh my God, I totally would buy at that level. But right now I'm at that level and I'm kind of like, I don't want Air Canada in my portfolio right now. But, when is that time? So that's kind of an interesting thing. See, the only listening devices we have in this house are 2 cells and 2 laptops to our knowledge. Okay. Well, in here, in my house, we got Google, we got Amazon, so Alexa, we got Siri. So yeah, there's a lot of things listening, and we've got smart lights. So, for example, the lamp in my bedroom, all I have to do is say, Alexa, turn on Candace, and that light comes on. And the same thing is if I say, Alexis, kill Candace, she'll shut the light off, which is, I find that just absolutely amazing. Now, I think I accidentally turned on Spotify in the rest of the house, and I don't know how. So if you hear a tiny bit of music in the background, that might be what that is. Alexa, turn off Spotify. Alexa, end? Oh, well, I don't know. So as long as we don't get copyright striked on this because there's some music in the far background, that will be awesome. Okay, and I will keep trying to talk so that way their algorithms can't hear the music behind me, perhaps. Let's move on to Robinhood. So Robinhood, they've actually announced that they're going to be laying off a good, and I think Jill got to that. So, woo, that was just weird. Robinhood is laying off 23% of their workforce. So they've had a lot of their issues involve, of course, crypto. That has hurt them quite a bit. So their revenue was down. So they came in at 318 million when they were expecting 321 million. So they were definitely down a bit. So that's never a good thing. Thank you. You gotta like that. I don't know. And I didn't even tell her to turn on music. So I don't know how I managed to pull that off. So sometimes when you're being listened to, what can I say? Okay. So reports. We had a few reports come out this week as well. One of them was the Purchasing Managers Index came out, and that's a U.S. report. They actually came in. Oh, hello, Mr. Red Taco. And he says, afternoon, everybody. Afternoon, Red Taco. So yeah, the Purchasing Managers Index came in, and they were anticipating that number to drop. Now, this is a number that you want it to be higher. It actually came in 1.4 points above last month, which is actually not too bad. So these are just some of there's a lot of positive things that are still happening behind the scenes, even though we had those we had Q1 and Q2 in the negative in the States. And, it still hasn't been called a recession. And I don't think they're going to call it one, at least not yet. But here's the thing. One of the things propping everything up is labor, of course. And then when the job markets came out on Friday and, everything looked pretty darn rosy in that, that can't be sustainable. I mean, because we've got companies now that are treating it like a recession. There's a lot of layoffs, and the layoffs are increasing. So I think we're going to, once we start seeing that affecting the job market, once we start seeing those numbers dropping, I think then they may be a little bit more willing to call it a recession. Now, if you put your tinfoil hat on, you might be like, well, they probably don't want to call a recession until after the November elections. But I think it's going to be they're going to call a spade at some point. And I understand, I know that the whole jobs and the way the economy is still chugging ahead somewhat. That's sort of keeping them from going full on recession, but it is going to happen. Mr. Red Taco, I'm only 25 minutes late. 25 minutes. That's cool. It's crazy seeing people shortage and then layoffs. Yeah, it's kind of one of those interesting things. But believe it or not, the layoffs can help with the shortages, because once these people are laid off, depends on how many hours. If they have the hours for EI, they may not go back to work immediately. But with the fears of a recession, if there's job shortages and you've been laid off, to me, that seems like a no-brainer. So hopefully that's going to help. A lot of people being laid off are going to go in and start filling some of these other jobs. So that could help with that. I mean, we're still in for a pretty rough ride, I think, when we're dealing with the economy. And a lot of people are really starting to consider automation. So you're going to see a lot more robots in the workforce. And that's the wave of the future. This is happening it's like we've thrown an accelerant on the future. So it's happening faster, which is kind of interesting. So that's kind of neat. Now, crypto. We'll move over to crypto for a little bit. So Bitcoin's been doing really well lately, which is kind of cool. Let's just take you guys want to take a quick look at Bitcoin? Let's just take a quick gander at Bitcoin. I just have to share the screen. And there we go. Share screen 1. And let's bring me in down here. So here's our little old Bitcoin right now. So as you can see, what Bitcoin has been doing, and there we go, move that over there, is you can see we're starting to put in higher lows, higher low, higher low, higher low. This might be another higher low. We'll have to sort of wait and see. And we're also putting in higher highs. So we have a trend right now moving up. One of the interesting things, when Bitcoin was a little bit more, what do I want to call it? A little bit more predictable. It used to follow TA a little bit better. So in those days, you would almost expect it to start following this channel. So you would expect this to move up to here next. So, and that's like, what is that? There we go. Just need my little thingy. So we'd be looking at it moving up to about 26K and then and then coming back down until it breaks out of this channel. But here's the thing. Bitcoin has been, let's see, last time I checked, Bitcoin was below 30K Canadian. Yeah, these prices here are in, this is in USD. Just to sort of, we'll put it there. Yeah, so these are in USD. Hi, Dalje. So yeah, that's what technical analysis says. Technical analysis says, but the problem is Bitcoin hasn't really been doing what technical analysis will predict. That's why technical analysis, I find, has been failing a lot with Bitcoin. Short term, sometimes yes. Is there a chance that it is going to bounce off of this and come up here? Sure, there is. But the problem is Bitcoin has really, really been following the market. And that's been pretty much since about January. It's been very, very, it's been very tied to the markets. Now, the nice thing about the market is that I'm expecting August to be a half decent month, which means if you think about it, let me just take a look here. So the end of August is over here. So that means that I think that there may be a chance that we may be able to get up to 26 US, come down. If it bounced back up, we may be able to make it almost to 30 before we're looking at a crash in the fall, unless something amazing happens. So what would be amazing? Well, amazing would be institutional investment. And when we're talking institutional, we're looking at all of the major, more or less pension funds. That's kind of one of the things that we need to move into crypto if we ever want to see a really good recovery. So I don't see that happening until we have some amount of regulation. And honestly, I don't think we're going to see that regulation. We may see some movement on that regulation this year, but I don't think we'll see it in 2022. So as a result, even if Bitcoin were to have a wonderful rest of the year, I don't see us getting to an all-time high this year. We might, best case scenario, we might be able to get back up to 50, but that would be best case scenario, in my opinion. Sometimes, keep in mind, sometimes Bitcoin can do absolutely anything crazy, but right now it's not at a point, it's at a point that I've still got my Bitcoin just sitting on a hardware wallet because, you know, but well, mind you, I mean, from my hardware wallet, if I wanted to sell my Bitcoin, I could move it off the hardware over to ShakePay, sell it on ShakePay, have the money transferred into my bank account. Probably could do that whole thing in about an hour, a little bit less. So it's not like it's a big thing to move it. But I think there's a lot of people right now, they're just sort of sitting steady, waiting, seeing what's going to happen. I do have, like, I am pretty bullish for Bitcoin long term. And it's one of these situations where the prices that it's at now are still fantastic. It's still going to be a good buy where Bitcoin's going to be in the future. But you got to be patient. That's the big thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one of those assets that is very, very frustrating. So that's one of these things that we just need to keep in mind. All right, let's get rid of that. There we go. Anyway, that was just a little bit on our good old friend Bitcoin. Now, there was one development. Coinbase has worked up an agreement with BlackRock. So basically, Coinbase is going to provide Bitcoin to BlackRock's investment customers. And BlackRock, of course, in the US, they own a lot of, they do a lot of investing for different companies. They do ETFs, for example, and that's cool. So that's really good, I think, for Coinbase. I think that will help them because with everything that's been happening in Cryptoville, you will kind of want to have a little bit of stability. Right now, it seems like Coinbase will probably survive. This deal will help them. FTX, of course, they're out there just eating up everything that they can come to. So FTX is going to be fine. Up here in Canada, I think we're going to be fine with, between ShakePay, Wealthsimple, of course, and a few of the other ones, BitBuy. I think those are all going to be good. We also have an interesting thing too. We got Mogo Trade that has come out this week. I think right now you can only get in through invites. I could be wrong on that, but they are a new commission-free broker that you can do your stocks with. So I have not had a chance to dig into it and really look into it. So I can't say whether or not they're good or not. The only thing I can say is they do have a bit of a gimmick, and that one gimmick is that they basically try to help the environment as you use them. So I think when you make a deposit, they plant a tree, something like that. So that's interesting. I mean, I certainly want to help the environment, but I know at least one community member was telling me about it, and they're pretty psyched about it. But right now, I look at it this way: Wealthsimple has that proven track record at the moment, so it would take quite a bit for me to even consider leaving Wealthsimple for another broker. But that is out there. If you guys want to just take a gander, I think Mogo as well had that card, that sort of Bitcoin rewards card, not that long ago as well. So they probably still have it. So that's out there just for you guys to be aware of. Right now, though, and here's one of the biggest things with Wealthsimple, they keep improving themselves. Every time there's a need that I have within Wealthsimple actually comes and fulfills it. For example, I wanted an American account. That was a big thing. And Wealthsimple now has Wealthsimple Plus. They've got their American account. So I find that really fantastic that they keep doing that. That's one of the best things about Wealthsimple, is that they keep on making these changes. So it'll be interesting to see how Mogo Trade is going to fit into all of this and what their role will be. And I'd also be interested to see what kind of backing they have behind them. I do know that they're fully insured. I saw that initially. So it could be interesting. It could be. So that's one of those things to take a look at. Now, have any of you guys gotten into Mogo Trade or even heard of them up to this point? Because, I didn't realize Mogo Trade was going to happen, until one of the community members pointed it out to me. And I was like, oh, yeah, I remember hearing something about that. So, let me know in the comments if you guys know of Mogo Trade, or maybe some of you are using Mogo Trade. Just let me know, because that'd be kind of cool. I'd love to hear about your experiences on Mogo Trade. All right. What in the banana bread is going on with Elon Musk? Everybody's favorite moment. So Elon he hasn't been super in the news this week. I think after last week and his pity party, he's been trying to sort of step back a little bit. Well, a little bit, not entirely. He did challenge Twitter CEO to a debate. And you guys can probably guess what this challenge was going to be on. So the debate is going to be on the amount of bots in Twitter. So that's kind of interesting, because, bots are technically the reason Elon claims that he's trying to back out of that deal. So it would be interesting to see if this happened. So his actual tweet was, "I hereby challenge @Paraga to a public debate about the Twitter bot percentage. Let him prove to the public that Twitter has less than 5% fake or spam daily users." So that's interesting. That is definitely very interesting. Mr. Red Taco says, "I agree with you, Kansas. It's hard to pull away from Wealthsimple." Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I do. I love Wealthsimple. So that's what it'll be. Mogo Trade will have to have something that Wealthsimple doesn't have. I think that would be one big thing about that. What is Elon buying this week? That's a good question. It's funny, when I did my TRI video, so on, TRI is the Thomas Writers. Somebody actually asked me in the comments if Elon owned them. It's like, no. So that's kind of funny. But Elon, yeah, I don't know if Elon bought anything. Nothing came up. I actually subscribed to a newsletter. It's basically it's a weekly newsletter that tells me things going on about Elon. There was no episode this week. They didn't even tell me about this whole this whole tweet thing happened pretty quickly, so we'll have to see whether that happens or see what the response is. Yeah, he can't help himself. Absolutely. And that's the thing. Elon just doesn't know when to stop. He doesn't know when to back down. He just keeps on going. So that's kind of a interesting thing. So Elon Musk's personal brand is slowly becoming a liability. This Twitter saga is a mess. Yeah, the Twitter saga is definitely a mess. And I think a lot of it is Elon doesn't fully understand, that word, where should I stop? Is there a line that I shouldn't step over? Elon will maybe figure out there's a line after he's already 20 yards in front of it. So, that's just the way he is. And, he is, and this is one of those things, Elon is relentless. He's very good at coming up with ideas and then pulling together the people who can make those ideas a reality. But when it comes to interacting directly with the public, Elon, that's not a strong suit for Elon. So that may very well be something that he should think about, maybe just sort of stepping back a little bit, having, when at one point he had a filter, somebody who had to approve his tweets before they went out. But I think that filter was only had to approve tweets on specific topics. So Elon found ways around them. And Elon's the type who probably wouldn't even follow the rules anyway. So that's kind of interesting. And I can't believe Elon was going to buy a company before he did all his research. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think he knew. I mean, because initially when he started talking about Twitter, he said, I'm going to clean up all the bots. So I think he knew. I think what happened, though, is when the market turned and the value of Twitter and everything else started plummeting, the valuation that he was willing to pay all of a sudden no longer made sense. And I strongly believe, I think that's why he's trying to back out, and he's trying to use the bots as his example. But I don't think it's going to work. I think he's going to get. I think in this case he's going to lose this battle. And probably lose a whole bunch of dignity at the same time. And Mountain of Inspiration agrees. Having a PR company do his tweets again. Yeah, he should have a PR company do not just his tweets. Pretty much any contact he has with the public probably needs to go through a filter. So that way he can make sure that he's not, saying outlandish things. I mean, he can still go on like Joe Rogan and do outlandish things if he wants, or on a talk show or something. But when it comes as an official type reaching out, then yeah, that needs to be filtered. And, that needs to be done pretty fast. Okay, that actually makes sense. He got cold feet and started treading water and wanted to get out. Yeah, no, it boiled down to the math. Elon is pretty smart. And I have a feeling he had a formula in his head on why he was willing to pay as much as he was. And once all of that valuation plummeted, as the stock was in trouble, as the market was falling, it fell out of his range, his mathematical range that he was willing to look at. And in many senses, it was bad timing. Like, Elon should have looked at the market. He should have figured out. The writing was on the wall, what was going to happen with the market. But for whatever reason, Elon did not read that wall. He must have went to a different wall, but he didn't go to the wall that I went to, or that all of us in this community have been looking at. We all have seen, everything from the money printing to the levels of inflation. I mean, the world financially has been burning a candle on two ends. So, of course, it has to come to some kind of a climax of sorts. And that's what Elon just failed to see. And I think that's helped get him into trouble. Now, Mountain says, but at this level, this kind of behavior is unacceptable. We're called to do our due diligence before committing to anything. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, absolutely. At his level, he shouldn't be. Now you can argue that because of his autism, that his filters are not firing the way that they should be, and that's probably true. But he's still smart enough that he could at least learn to know to get that second opinion if he's not seeing how people are going to react correctly. And at his level, absolutely. I mean, the company should be behind him, saying, "Look, Elon, we can't have you doing this." And there needs to be somebody at least big enough in the company. And this is one of the problems too. So I think a lot of people are probably afraid of him in the company because he does tend to go off the deep end pretty darn fast. Yeah, and exactly, he is a little bit tad, acts a little bit crazy when it comes to the public. But keep in mind, in his own head, it may not seem crazy. It may be just that he just doesn't understand why people respond the way that they do. Well, his hijinks could make all of his companies feel like he's a liability. Yeah, there have been people talking out from SpaceX and from Tesla saying that he's a little bit of a problem, and he may very well be. But at the same time, those companies wouldn't be there without him, because they all were birthed out of his ideas. So you got to keep that in mind. Sometimes you have to sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? You kind of have to make some accommodations for the genius, because their behavior is going to be different. But in exchange for some of the rough behavior, you're going to get some really good inspirations. And that's the thing with Elon is, he has provided a lot of great technologies, of great ideas, everything from SpaceX, robotics, even the Neuralink he's working on, and the Pi phone. I mean, we're looking at a lot of really great stuff that he has come out with. So you got to kind of weigh things up. You got to weigh things. Considering his childhood, it's very reasonable and easy to understand his two lowest scores in test that he made public from years and years ago. He scored very low in sympathy and protective instinct. Yeah. And that sometimes you have to accept people for who they are, right? Because a lot of times, a lot of people feel very comfortable when they can sort of cream everybody into a nice little neat box. But people are messy. People, sometimes it's very hard to fit everybody into a box. And when you've got somebody like Elon who's really far outside the box, it can be even more difficult. So you kind of have to weigh that all in. I don't think Elon should be removed from his companies. I think he just needs to be focused on the stuff he does best, and maybe get a little help when it comes to the social aspect, just because, that will make the people who he works with more productive, makes them happier. So that's just one little thing that I would look at. So, and Mr. Red Taco says you have to deal with some crazy to move forward, but we've seen worse people in this world say things online than just what Elon says. Yeah, there's definitely people out there that have said much worse than anything Elon has said. Elon just tends to be very direct, matter-of-factly, and not takes a lot of emotion into consideration. But there have been a lot of people out there that have said things that, well, are actually mean. And I don't think Elon's ever truly been mean. I think he's been unintentionally maybe mean because of ignoring emotions. But how do you think JPM will do in between now? John. I'm not sure what. Okay, in between now. Okay. And September. So in between now and September. All right, JPM. Let me know what JPM is. Just for whatever reason, my mind is not pulling up a ticker for that. Mr. Red Taco, I don't think he does what he does intentionally to hinder, harm, or hurt anyone. Yeah, exactly. And that is exactly the point I was kind of making there, is that, I think it's more or less unintentional. So, okay. Oh, JP Morgan, right? I was just trying to think of the JPs, and I just also Googled it very well too. So JP Morgan Chase and Company. I assume that that's who you're talking about, John D. So right now, and I think this is going to be most of the market. So the S&P, I see things, unless we have some kind of a black swan event, most stocks I think are going to have either anywhere from flat to green for August. I think they're going to sort of float through August. Probably make it up until Labor Day. But here's where we start running into issues. Once we start getting into the fall, I think that's when we're going to start to see that we're no longer, that we're still in the bear market, that more or less this is a bit of I've called it an oasis, or in the video I put out yesterday, I called it the eye of a bear market hurricane. So I do think, now I can be wrong, keep that in mind, because sometimes the market will do exactly the opposite of what we were all expecting. But yeah, I'm thinking we're looking at least mostly green days for August. Then September, just be ready. There's probably going to be some good buying opportunities in September. How long will it last? That will be a really good question once we get back into the red in September. Will it persist? Now, and back again to the whole conspiracy theorists, those people who like to put on the tinfoil hats are probably saying, well, maybe they'll start just trying to pump the market just to get us through to the midterms. That's a possibility. I don't see that as happening. I think right now there's just so much happening. Now, it'll also there's going to be a couple of factors. We're going to have like CPI data coming out in August, but there's not going to be a Fed meeting. So there's no rate hikes in August, or the Bank of Canada is not hiking in August. But September, we're going to be back to that. And it's really going to boil down to how that's happening, what's happening with the job market. Are we going to get to a point, will these layoffs get to a point that they call an official recession by September, or is that going to happen a little bit later? So that'll be interesting. But the nice thing about JP Morgan is that they're a very solid company. Like they're not going to fall in the bear market. So if you're looking at them for long-term investment, they're not a bad decision. Most of the bigger financial institutions are pretty solid when it comes to long-term investment. You just may not be able to make fast money on them. So keep that in mind. That's kind of what I think right now about JP Morgan. But as I said, all it takes is, well, let's give you an idea. Let's say, for example, we had that whole thing with Pelosi going to Taiwan, and amazingly enough, the market actually didn't do as bad. There was a bit of a drop that morning of, but it turned itself around pretty quickly. I think the market sort of had more of an issue with the positive jobs report on Friday than it did with Pelosi. But let's just say for real that if China were to invade Taiwan, that would be the type of black swan event that could really, really throw the entire market into turmoil. But here's the thing, and this is what a lot of people don't realize, is that when it comes to the economy in China, one of the biggest contributions to their economy is land sales within China. And their land sales are down about 20%. So they are actually hurting a little bit economically. When you factor in all of the hard lockdowns they had for Corona, that is also hurting and impacting the Chinese economy. So when I sort of say, well, let's go invade Taiwan. Well, no, you don't want to be doing that when you're already trying to recover from an economic issue. So you want to resolve that first. Get yourself on firm footing before you do something like that. So I wouldn't even consider that to be, no, we don't want another invasion at all. Um, I would not even consider that to be a possibility, even in the short to midterm. If China ever decides to do it, they're going to clean up their own house first. They'll get their economy back in order before they would ever consider something like that. As for the war between Russia and Ukraine, I think that's pretty much going to be a long term. Not much more is going to change. The biggest impact, I think, economy wise, is I think you're going to see oil go back up in the fall. And that's simply because as winter gets close, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have much more of a higher demand for oil without an increased supply. So there's going to be a lot of interesting things. And it's going to be a fun, I don't want to say fun, because for a lot of people, it won't be fun. But as people who observe, like for, a community like ours, where we sort of like to observe some of the world events that are going on and how it's impacting the economy, how it's impacting our investments, it can still be interesting to sort of see what's happening. And the big thing is always keep your ears to the grind, listen to the stuff that's going on, listen to the stuff in the news. And a lot of times it can help you sort of figure out what's coming down the pike. And sometimes that can be really good when it comes to thinking about what you want to do with your investments in the future to secure yourself, so that way there you can make the most possible long term. Okay. So we're almost at the end here. What do I got coming up this week? So tomorrow's video is I did a top 10 recently on my top 10 holdings in my TFSA. Now, because CNR at that point was my top holding, and they were doing well, so it was the right time to start rebalancing that. So I did quite a big rebalance in my TFSA. CNR is no longer number one, just to give you an idea. And I added a few other stocks, dividend payers, just sort of beefed things up a bit. So what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to show you guys my entire TFSA, just the Canadian side. I do have an American TFSA as well, but I will show you what we do have. And Jill mentioned that OPEC is increasing supply. Yes, they're increasing it by 100,000 barrels. Normally in September, though, they significantly increase it more than that. So the 100,000 doesn't make up for the increased demand. So that's kind of one of those things, unless OPEC changes their mind and starts increasing it, getting back to a more reasonable amount. And there will be pressure on them, I'm sure. The world is screaming for oil. So that'll be interesting. Okay. Back to my schedule. And Thursday, I'm doing another deep dive, and this time I'm going to be doing a deep dive on Dollarama. That was a request. So we're going to talk a little bit about Dollarama. Do they make sense right now? Are they a really good investment, considering a lot of people are turning to cheaper alternatives with a possible recession on the horizon? So that'll be Thursday, and I think that'll be fantastic. And yeah, it's weird definitely seeing the gas prices at $1.50 a liter. Wait till they go. They will go back up. It's nice. I'm glad that people are getting a little bit of a break though over the summer. And Dollarama, that's exciting. Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to the Dollarama one, because it's funny. I've heard a lot of people in the community talking about different stocks that weren't really on my radar for a while. So Pizza was one, and I ended up actually doing a little bit on Pizza when I did the royalty stocks, and I was just like, oh God, this actually is a really nice little stock. So I will, and this is a spoiler alert, I have added Pizza to my portfolio, and you'll see that tomorrow. And now Dollarama, that's Pizza and Dollarama are these ones that I'm always hearing people talk about. And it's like, okay, well, that's the thing. I want to do deep dives on the companies that you guys want. So, every so often, you guys are throwing me a company and I'm doing them. I think I've done every company I've been asked to do. So once again, and this is what I usually say, you know, comment on a video if there's a, like, if, especially on a deep dive video, if there's a stock you want me to do, just throw it up there and say, hey, can you please do such and such a company? Because I'll be happy to, because I want to do what you guys are interested in. Because I look at it this way: if one of you leaves me a comment saying you want me to do stock A or stock B or stock C, there's probably another 5 or 10 of you that are probably interested in that stock anyway. And then there's another 5 or 10 of you that maybe weren't interested in that stock, but after I've done a deep dive, they might be like, oh, I think I'm going to do some research on that stock. They sound kind of interesting. So that's what makes it this community great, is because we got all of our brains, we put them together, and we come up with some really great solutions. And look at that, the friggin' Oracle is talking about Jello. I think he wants me to do a deep dive on Jello, and that just amuses me in my head because I've got a funny mental image right now. Like, have you ever thought it would be cool? This is weird, but have you ever thought it would be kind of cool to just dive into a swimming pool of Jello? Just, I would want to have like wires attached to me to pull me out of it right away, because I don't know. I know I wouldn't like it, but it would just be interesting to see what that would feel like. And Mr. Red Taco, Jello and Jello pudding. Yeah, I do like the pudding. And no Cosby's allowed. No, it's Cosby free pudding. Deep dive with a kiddie pool. Okay. Wow. Yeah, so you guys are creating some definitely wonderful mental images of Jello or pudding in swimming pools. Here today, that wouldn't hold up because we've had some thunderstorms coming through with some pretty hefty amounts of rain as they've come through. Anyway, everybody, it's been fantastic being here once again with you guys. You guys are what make Sunday afternoons worth getting everything done in time to do it. Oh, that made no sense. Don't mind me on that one. I think I'll stick to the ball pits. Well, you know what? The ball pits are a lot less messy, because you don't have to clean it up. It's just foam. Anyway, everybody, thank you all for being here today. I will see you guys through the week, and we'll be back here next Sunday, and we'll do this all over again. So we'll end this on Mr. Red Taco's comment. Have a great Sunday, everyone. Keep cool if you're in the heat. Keep warm if you're in the cold. Awesome. All right, everybody. Take care. We'll see you again real soon.